The choking smell of smoke and scorched wood still lingered in my nasal cavity, sharp and painful, like a brand that can never be erased, deeply imprinted on every inch of my soul. I could still clearly hear the crackling sound of burning flames devouring paper documents and wooden partitions, see the thick black smoke rolling up to block all light, and feel the high-temperature heat wave baking my skin, bringing the final despair of approaching death. In the sealed and airtight file room of the Canyon Lake Municipal Engineering Bureau, I was trapped in the endless fire purgatory, waiting for the coming of death. Outside the fire door, the man I had loved wholeheartedly for 3 years, Todd Carter, stood coldly, his voice piercing through the fire and smoke, ruthless and vicious, without a trace of nostalgia. Gwen, you deserve this. Gigi is innocent and simple. She just followed her intuition to try her luck. You deliberately made things difficult for her, frightened her, and made a fuss over a molehill for a little trivial matter. You are selfish and cruel. You deserve to be reduced to ashes here. All the records in this file room will be burned with you. No one will know your false accusation and your viciousness. His every word was a sharp blade, piercing my heart that was already riddled with holes. I had spent my whole life being cautious, dedicated my youth and energy to the municipal engineering cause, and risked my life to stop a catastrophic disaster. But in the end, I ended up with a false charge, a ruined reputation, and a tragic death in the fire. And the source of all this tragedy was the ridiculous favoritism of my boyfriend Todd and the ignorant and greedy mischief of his childhood best friend Gigi Bennett. It all started with that ordinary Friday morning, which was ordinary to everyone, but a life and death turning point that completely destroyed my life. The state government had just allocated a huge emergency fund of $100 million, which was specially used for the reinforcement and danger elimination project of Canyon Lake Dam. This was a life-related municipal project, related to the safety of tens of thousands of residents in the entire lake area, and every penny of the funds was nailed to the safety of the people. As the core financial supervisor of the project, I was responsible for the fund verification and fund transfer work of the entire project. Every operation needed my security key and double verification to take effect, with zero error tolerance and zero recklessness. But Todd, my boyfriend, who was the regional project supervisor at that time, insisted on dragging me to the downtown branch of the Federal Reserve Bank to handle the fund transfer procedures in person. His reason was absurd and naive, even ridiculous in retrospect. His childhood baby friend Gigi Bennett had just joined the bank as a junior teller, a newcomer who had just graduated from college with no practical work experience, no financial risk awareness, and no professional operation qualification for large fund transactions. Todd insisted on letting Gigi personally handle the $100 million level government fund transaction, claiming that he wanted to help his little friend accumulate practical work experience and help her quickly adapt to the new job and gain a firm foothold in the bank. At that time, I was soft-hearted and indulgent. I thought it was just a trivial matter of changing the handling teller. As long as the operation was standardized and the funds were safe, there was no need to refute his face and embarrass his childhood friend. I was naive enough to compromise, not knowing that this trivial compromise would become the beginning of my doom. The bank's business hall was bright and spacious, with transparent glass partitions and neat service counters. The sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows, shining on Gigi's young and delicate face. She had a sweet and innocent appearance, with a childish harmlessness that was extremely deceptive. Everyone who saw her would think she was a simple, silly, and innocent little girl who knew nothing about the world. But the moment I inserted my personal security key, ready to complete the fund verification and start the official transfer, Gigi did an extremely crazy and unimaginable thing. She completely ignored the official transfer procedure of government special funds, ignored the risk warning popped up by the bank system, and took advantage of the system's temporary verification gap to forcibly operate the background, transferring all $100 million of emergency dam reinforcement funds in the account in one go. The target of the full investment was a junk stock called Green Terra Solutions. This was a listed company on the verge of delisting. The stock price had been hovering at the lowest price for a long time. The company's financial data was completely negative. The operating conditions were in a complete collapse, and the exchange had issued a formal delisting notice. The stock would be completely delisted and cleared from the market in less than 3 hours. Once the delisting was completed, all the invested funds would be completely wiped out, with zero residual value and no possibility of recovery. 100 million life-saving funds, all invested in a dead stock that was about to be cleared, equivalent to directly pushing the entire Canyon Lake Dam reinforcement project into a dead end. After completing this crazy operation, Gigi turned her chair around, faced me who was completely stunned, and raised her chin triumphantly, with no fear or guilt in her eyes, only childish frivolity and ridiculous arrogance. She tilted her head, her voice sharp and childish, with a vague lisp unique to children, and she even frivolously blew me a flying kiss. "Don't be so angry, Gwen." My daily horoscope said I have super good fortune today, absolutely unstoppable. Look at this little green stock. It's poor and cheap now, but it will definitely double and skyrocket soon. When I double all your money, I will give you all the profit, okay? You have to thank me. Rage and panic instantly engulfed my whole body. My hands and feet were cold, my blood was almost solidified, and my whole body trembled uncontrollably. This was not pocket money, not a small amount of spare money for fun. This was $100 million of government emergency special funds related to the life safety of tens of thousands of people. Once the funds were lost, the dam reinforcement project would be completely shut down. The materials could not be purchased, the construction team could not work, and the hidden dangers of the old dam could not be eliminated. The upcoming summer superflood would directly burst the unreinforced Canyon Lake Dam, flooding the entire downstream town, devouring countless houses and lives, triggering an unprecedented catastrophic flood disaster. I didn't have time to argue or be angry. I just knew I had to stop this transaction immediately, freeze the funds, and reverse this ROM operation before the stock delisting took effect. I sternly demanded Gigi to immediately cancel the investment transaction and restore the original fund account data. But at this critical moment, Todd, my boyfriend who should have stood on the side of reason and justice, chose to unconditionally shield his childhood friend without hesitation. He picked up the official paper authorization letter on the counter, signed his name quickly and forcefully, and completely approved Gigi's crazy and wrong operation in his capacity as the regional project person in charge. He glanced at me coldly, his tone arrogant, perfunctory, and extremely ridiculous, full of contempt for my rigor and trivialization of major right and wrong. Don't listen to her nagging trivial lessons, Gigi. Just do whatever you want. Even if you lose all her pocket money, I can compensate her 10 times over. I can afford this loss, so don't be afraid. He didn't understand what kind of disaster he was triggering, didn't understand that this was not a simple financial loss, but a fatal disaster that could bury tens of thousands of lives. In his eyes, my rigorous supervision and life-saving urgency were just petty nagging and unreasonable making trouble. His childhood friend's childish whim was more important than tens of thousands of lives and national public funds. In my previous life, I was impulsive and flustered. Faced with this crazy situation, I chose the most extreme way to save the situation. Regardless of the bank staff's obstruction and Todd's angry drinking, I smashed the thick glass partition of the counter with my bare hands, ignored the bleeding palm, and violently pulled off the network cable of the bank's internal transaction system on the wall. I forcibly cut off the transaction data transmission, froze the fund account in the last 3 minutes before the delisting, and successfully reversed the wrong investment operation. I saved the 100 million life-saving funds, kept the dam reinforcement project on track, allowed the construction team to purchase high-standard reinforcement materials on schedule, and completed all hidden danger elimination work before the arrival of the summer flood. The catastrophic flood came as scheduled, but the reinforced Canyon Lake Dam stood firm, blocking the raging flood and protecting the lives and property of all downstream residents. I saved tens of thousands of people, but I completely lost myself. Because of my violent damage to bank public property and unauthorized interruption of the official system operation, Todd took advantage of the loophole and was not dismissed, as he should have been for dereliction of duty. Instead, he turned black and white upside down and framed me maliciously. He fabricated false evidence, slandered me for embezzling public project funds, falsely accused me of abusing my power for personal gain and disrupting official financial order, and pushed all the dereliction of duty and operational errors on me alone. He used his network resources to suppress all public opinions, erased all my rescue records, and made me bear all the blame alone. In the end, he locked me in the closed file room of the Engineering Bureau, where all the project financial records and personnel files were stored, and then cruelly set a fire to burn the entire file room. He wanted to burn me and all the truth to ashes forever, so that his dereliction of duty and Gigi's recklessness would never be exposed to the world. Before the fire completely swallowed me, I heard his last cold words through the crack of the door. Gigi is so innocent, Gwen. How dare you frighten her? You deserve to turn to ashes here. All the records that can prove your innocence will be burned with you. The fire burned my flesh and blood, and also burned all my love, kindness, and persistence. The endless pain and hatred became the last memory of my previous life. I resented my stupidity and soft-heartedness, resented Todd's blindness and cruelty, resented Gigi's ignorance and greed, and resented the unfair fate that rewarded good with evil. If I could do it all over again, I would never be kind again, never be impulsive again, never waste my efforts to save these ungrateful people. I want them to bear the consequences of their own madness, fall into the abyss they dug themselves, and taste the endless regret and despair that I once endured. Chapter 1 Rebirth Reset. The moment before the disaster. Abandon all kindness. The blazing fire and choking smoke suddenly dissipated. The intense burning pain on the skin disappeared in an instant, replaced by the cool air of the air-conditioned room and the bright and soft light of the bank hall. My consciousness jolted awake suddenly. I opened my eyes abruptly, and the familiar bank counter, transparent glass partition, neat teller equipment, and the two people in front of me who made me hate to the bone all appeared in my sight again. Todd stood beside me, tall and handsome, with a gentle smile on his face, looking at Gigi at the counter indulgently. Gigi was sitting in front of the computer terminal, her fingers resting on the mouse, her face full of childish excitement and frivolity, and the system page on the screen was staying at the critical step before the confirmation of the stock investment transaction. I'm reborn. I returned to 10 minutes before the complete collapse of the previous life, returned to the moment when Gigi was about to click the confirm button to invest 100 million funds in delisted junk stocks, and returned to all the mistakes that had not happened, and all the tragedies that had not unfolded. The time is exactly the same Friday morning, the bank hall is exactly the same, the people in front of me are exactly the same, and the upcoming disaster is exactly the same. The only difference is me. I am no longer the stupid, soft-hearted, impulsive Gwen who was burdened with kindness and responsibility in my previous life. I have experienced the fire of purgatory, tasted the pain of being framed and killed, and seen the cold-bloodedness and ingratitude of these two people clearly. From this second on, all my kindness is dead. Only cold-blooded revenge and absolute calm remain in my heart. In my previous life, I chose to rush to save the disaster, sacrifice myself to protect everyone, but ended up with a tragic death and a ruined reputation. In this life, I choose to stand by and watch, to remain indifferent, to let the law of karma take its course, and to let the two arrogant and ignorant people in front of me destroy themselves with their own hands. I took a step back slowly, my footsteps steady and calm, without the slightest fluster and anger of my previous life. I crossed my arms over my chest, leaned back slightly, and stood in the most relaxed and indifferent posture, my eyes cold and calm, quietly staring at Gigi and Todd in front of me. There was no anger, no anxiety, no persuasion, no obstruction in my eyes, only a cold indifference of watching a play and waiting for the ending of destruction. Todd noticed my strange silence and turned to look at me, with a trace of doubt in his gentle tone. "Baby, what's wrong with you? Why don't you speak? Don't worry, Gigi is very smart. She won't make a mistake." He was still so conceited and arrogant, still blindly doting on his childhood friend, still taking all major risks as trivial fun. Gigi also turned her head, saw my calm and unresponsive appearance, pouted her mouth unhappily, and repeated her childish and ridiculous words again, with more arrogance in her tone than before. "Gwen, you're too rigid. Life needs a little adventure. My horoscope is super accurate today. I will definitely make a lot of money. When I make your money double, you will praise me." She shook her legs triumphantly, her fingers hovering over the confirm button, waiting for my panic and opposition, waiting for Todd to stand up for her and suppress my dissatisfaction, as usual. But I didn't give them any reaction they expected. I just looked at them indifferently. The corners of my mouth even slightly raised a cold and ironic arc. "Go ahead." My voice was calm and cold, without any fluctuation, without the slightest anger or obstruction. "Since you, the regional project supervisor, personally approve this crazy operation and take full responsibility for all risks, then just do it boldly. Don't hold back. Don't hesitate. Since your horoscope says you have great fortune, then let's take a good look. Let's see if your so-called great fortune can predict the complete destruction and desperate ending that you two are about to face." Todd was stunned for a moment, obviously not expecting me to compromise so easily and even take the initiative to agree. In his impression, I have always been rigorous and prudent in work, with a strict bottom line for fund operation, and would never allow such reckless and risky operation. He thought I would argue, resist and be angry as usual, and he was even ready to comfort Gigi and perfunctorily suppress my emotions. But my abnormal calm made him faintly uncomfortable, but his conceited pride quickly overwhelmed the slight unease in his heart. He thought I was finally tired of arguing with him, finally compromised for his face, and finally recognized his so-called ability to take responsibility. Gigi was even more elated when she heard my words. She thought I was admitting my timidity and ignorance, and that I was acquiescing to her whimsical operation. She raised her chin proudly, her eyes full of victory, and without any hesitation, she pressed the mouse heavily and clicked the Confirm Full Investment button on the system interface. Ding. The system prompt sounded crisply in the quiet counter. Transaction confirmed successfully. A total of $100 million of special project funds have been fully invested in Green Terra Solutions, stock code, GTS, holding 100% of the tradable shares of the stock. System risk warning. The target stock is in the delisting pending stage, and the trading channel will be permanently closed in 178 minutes. All invested funds will face full loss and zero recovery risk. The red bold risk warning popped up prominently on the computer screen, dazzling and eye-catching, reminding all operators of fatal risks. Gigi glanced at the warning box casually, not paying any attention to the terrifying red warning, and even closed the prompt box impatiently. She turned around again, blew me a more ostentatious flying kiss, and said triumphantly, "See, the transaction is successful. Just wait for me to make you rich. You just don't understand investment opportunities. This is my unique intuition and luck." Todd stood beside her, smiling indulgently, reaching out to rub Gigi's hair, and looking at me proudly, his tone full of disdain for my conservatism. "Look, it's done perfectly. There's no need to be so nervous about a little money. I've already said that I can afford all the losses. You're just too cautious and rigid. You don't understand the flexibility of making money. Gigi is smarter than you." I stood there with my arms crossed, watching their arrogant and ignorant appearance, and the coldness in my heart became thicker and thicker. They had no idea that what they had just confirmed was not an investment transaction, but a death sentence for their careers, reputations, and futures. In my previous life, I blocked this step and saved them, but was killed by them in return. In this life, I let them take this step firmly, and I will watch them fall into the abyss step by step. Chapter 2, IQ Crushing. Silent Layout. Perfect Evidence Chain Lockdown. The bank staff around had noticed the abnormal large fund investment operation, and several professional tellers looked at each other with obvious horror and disbelief in their eyes. They were all clear about the nature of the 100 million special government funds, and also clear about the fate of the Green Terra junk stock. This operation is not a simple investment mistake, but a serious dereliction of duty, even suspected of major economic crime. But no one dared to speak rashly. After all, Todd was a senior project supervisor of the Municipal Engineering Bureau with a high position and great influence, and Gigi was a new employee of the bank, backed by Todd's connections. Only I knew that the situation was just beginning, and the real collapse had not yet arrived. I did not make any noise or accusation on the spot, because the more calm I am now, the more thorough their subsequent collapse will be. In my previous life, my impulsive on-site disposal gave them a chance to reverse the situation and frame me. In this life, I will use the most rigorous and rational way to lock all the evidence firmly on them. I took out my work mobile phone silently, turned on the official recording function of the work system, and carried out full process video and audio recording in a standardized manner, without missing any word and any detail. I first took a clear screenshot of the bank system transaction record, including the exact time of the transaction, the investor account information, the fund source label of the special dam project, the target stock information, and the system's delisting risk warning records, all of which were completely saved and backed up in the official cloud disk with timestamp certification, which could not be tampered with or deleted. Then I aimed the camera at Todd and Gigi and calmly recorded their arrogant remarks and irresponsible attitudes one by one. Todd was still complacent, unaware that every word he said was becoming ironclad evidence of his dereliction of duty. Gwen, don't always be stuck in rules. Work needs flexibility. Even if the stock loses money, I can fill the 100 million gap alone without affecting the project. His arrogant boasting was ridiculous and pathetic. A mere regional project supervisor's annual salary is less than $200,000. It is a fantasy to fill a 100 million fund gap, but he dares to speak wildly in front of public funds and national livelihood projects. Gigi was even more unscrupulous, chattering about her horoscope luck and investment intuition, completely ignoring the seriousness of public fund management. This is just a casual try. My luck has always been super good. Maybe the stock will suddenly reverse and skyrocket before delisting. Those rigid rules are just for cowards. I recorded all their words and behaviors completely, with clear pictures and sound, and the evidence chain was perfect and seamless. After completing all the evidence backups, I looked up at Todd and asked in a flat and official tone, without any personal emotion. Supervisor Todd, as the person in charge of the Canyon Lake Dam Reinforcement Project, you clearly know that this fund is a special emergency fund for people's livelihood, which is prohibited from being used for any stock speculation and investment behaviors. Are you sure to personally approve this fund investment operation and bear all legal responsibilities, administrative responsibilities, and project loss consequences arising therefrom? This is the most critical procedural trap. In my previous life, I was flustered and angry and did not leave any formal procedural confirmation, giving Todd a chance to quibble that it was Gigi's personal unauthorized operation and had nothing to do with him. In this life, I will force him to take the initiative to confirm his responsibility in a formal and procedural manner so that he has no room to deny and shirk. Todd was immersed in his arrogant self-confidence and did not hear the hidden trap in my official words at all. He nodded heavily, his tone firm and proud, and took the initiative to increase his responsibility. I confirm. I personally approve this operation. All consequences are borne by me alone, which has nothing to do with you, Gwen. You don't need to worry about it at all. Gigi is just helping with the operation. All decisions are my approval. I will take full responsibility for any problems. Perfect. I nodded slightly, saved the last paragraph of audio evidence, and closed the recording equipment. All the evidence is locked. From the operation subject, approval subject, transaction process, risk prompt to responsibility confirmation, every link is solid and effective, enough to completely nail the two people to the pillar of dereliction of duty and economic crime. I no longer paid attention to the two self-satisfied people, turned around, and walked out of the bank hall calmly. Todd looked at my back and thought I was still angry and awkward, so he didn't take it seriously and continued to stay in the bank hall chatting and laughing with Gigi, waiting for the so-called stock skyrocketing miracle. They didn't know that from the moment they confirmed the transaction, their fate had been completely doomed. Chapter 3 Advanced Layout. Cut off all retreats. Zero possibility of reversal. After leaving the bank, I did not return to the engineering bureau immediately, but completed 3 key layout steps in the shortest time, completely cutting off all retreats for Todd and Gigi, leaving them with no chance of turning over. The first step is to report the abnormal fund operation to the State Financial Supervision Bureau and the project supervision team in real time in the name of the project financial supervisor, and submit all the preliminary evidence screenshots and recording files. I strictly followed the official reporting procedures, leaving formal reporting records and timestamps, proving that I performed my supervision duties in place, had no dereliction of duty, and had actively reported risks at the first time. This completely cleared myself of all responsibilities and fundamentally eliminated the possibility of being framed for dereliction of duty and supervision, as in my previous life. The second step is to send a formal written risk warning email to all members of the project team, the Municipal Government Project Office, and the Dam Construction Unit, clearly stating that the project's special funds have been abnormally invested, there is a major risk of fund loss, and the subsequent material procurement and construction progress will face a comprehensive shutdown risk. I explicitly reminded the construction unit to stop all advanced construction and material advance payment behaviors and reserve all construction loss assessment standards. This move directly fixed the subsequent project loss data, so that Todd could not shirk the project delay and livelihood disaster losses caused by fund problems, and all consequences can only be borne by him personally. The third step is to privately contact the professional financial analyst team of the exchange and obtain the official delisting judgment document of Green Terra Solutions in advance. The official exchange has long confirmed that the company's financial fraud is serious, the operating data is completely falsified, and the delisting and liquidation procedures have been completely approved. The stock will be completely cleared in less than 3 hours, and all investment funds will be completely lost without any recovery channel. I saved the official delisting announcement and liquidation notice in advance, waiting for the moment of complete fund loss to form a closed-loop evidence chain. All layouts are precise and rigorous, with no loopholes and no omissions. In my previous life, I was busy saving the disaster and protecting others, but ignored self-protection and evidence layout. In this life, I don't save anyone, don't take any risks, only do self-protection and enemy trapping, and let the enemies fall into the trap completely by their own arrogance and stupidity. 3 hours pass quickly. At exactly 12 noon, the exchange officially announced the delisting and permanent liquidation of Green Terra Solutions. The stock trading channel was permanently closed, the stock value was cleared to zero, and the $100 million of special livelihood funds invested in full was completely lost, with zero residual value and zero recovery possibility. The moment the delisting announcement came out, the relaxed and playful atmosphere in the bank hall instantly collapsed. Gigi stared at the zero stock value displayed on the computer screen, her whole body stiff, her childish and proud smile completely frozen on her face, replaced by pale panic and blankness. No. Huh? She shook her head repeatedly, her voice trembling and broken, completely flustered. My horoscope is clearly good fortune. How could it be zero? How could all the money be gone? She, who was arrogant just now, instantly turned into a frightened little mouse, completely losing her previous frivolity and arrogance. Todd also completely lost his gentle and calm appearance. His face was as pale as paper, his eyes were full of horror and disbelief, and his whole body was shaking uncontrollably. He kept refreshing the stock page, but the data was always fixed at zero, and the system kept prompting that the stock had been delisted and liquidated, and the funds could not be recovered. The 100 million public funds were completely wiped out in an instant. The huge pressure of dereliction of duty, economic crime, and livelihood disaster instantly crushed his arrogant self-confidence. He finally realized what a crazy and fatal mistake he had made. Chapter 4: Enemy Collapse. Panic shirking, mutual betrayal, and infighting. After the initial panic, Todd's first reaction was not to take responsibility, but to shirk the blame and find a scapegoat, just like in his previous life. His eyes turned red with anxiety, and he immediately turned to Gigi, his previous doting and tenderness completely disappearing, leaving only irritability and anger. Gigi, how could you do this? I just let you practice operation, who let you invest all the funds in junk stocks. You messed up everything. You ruined all my careers. Faced with Todd's sudden accusation, Gigi was completely stunned, and then cried out of fear and grievance. She was young and ignorant, and all her courage came from Todd's unconditional protection. Now that the accident happened, Todd turned against her instantly, and she was completely panicked. Todd, you clearly agreed just now. You said you would take full responsibility. You said even if you lose money, you can compensate 10 times. You personally approved the transaction. You let me do it. Now why are you blaming me alone? The two people who were close childhood friends and shielded each other just now instantly tore their faces completely, accusing and shirking each other in the bank hall, exposing each other's mistakes and selfishness in front of all the staff. The gentle and affectionate brother-sister friendship on weekdays was vulnerable in the face of huge disasters and criminal responsibilities. Todd was anxious to protect himself, and regardless of Gigi's crying and pleading, he completely cleared his relationship and pushed all the faults to Gigi's unauthorized operation and ignorance. I just let you handle the normal transfer. You privately changed the transaction content and speculated in stocks without permission. This is your personal dereliction of duty and illegal operation, which has nothing to do with me. Gigi was desperate and angry, and directly broke out completely, exposing all Todd's arrogant words and approval behaviors in public. You are lying. You clearly said don't listen to Gwen's nagging. You signed the authorization letter yourself. You said you can afford any loss. You are the one who is greedy for face and blind doting. You are the one who killed everything. The two quarreled fiercely in the bank hall, their faces ferocious and ugly, completely exposing their selfish and hypocritical nature to everyone present. The bank staff watched their farce coldly, and everyone knew clearly that these two people were the chief culprits of the 100 million public fund loss. At this moment, I pushed open the bank door and walked in again, my posture calm and steady, my expression cold and indifferent, like a bystander watching their ugly farce. When Todd saw me, his eyes lit up instantly, and he immediately abandoned the quarreling Gigi and rushed towards me, trying to repeat the framing trick of his previous life. He grabbed my arm eagerly, his tone anxious and false, pretending to be helpless and wronged. Gwen, you have to help me. This is all a misunderstanding. It's all Gigi's random operation. I was just confused for a moment. You are the fund supervisor. You have the authority to reverse the transaction. Hurry up and find a way to recover the funds. As long as you help me solve this problem, I will never blame you again, and I will compensate you doubly. Don't report this matter. Once it is reported, my career will be completely over. We have been together for 3 years. You can't be so cruel to me. He wanted to use his feelings to kidnap me, let me take the risk to clean up the mess for him, and even wanted to push the supervisory dereliction of duty on me again. In his previous life, I was soft-hearted and was moved by his pretended pleading and tried my best to remedy it, but was framed and killed by him in the end. In this life, I only feel extremely ridiculous and disgusting when I hear his words. I raised my hand gently and broke away from his grabbing arm, my movements cold and decisive, without any hesitation. I looked at his flustered and ugly face and said every word clearly and coldly, with absolute procedural justice and irrefutable truth. Todd, first, I have submitted all risk reports and evidence to the Supervision Bureau 3 hours ago. I have performed all supervisory duties, with 0 dereliction of duty and 0 responsibility. Second, you personally signed the authorization letter, personally confirmed the fund investment operation, and personally promised to bear all responsibilities. All audio, video, and written evidence is complete and effective. Third, the stock has been completely delisted and liquidated, the funds have been completely lost, and there is no possibility of recovery. No one can reverse the result you caused. Fourth, don't kidnap me with feelings. You chose to approve this crazy operation yourself, and you have to bear all the consequences yourself. My words were like a basin of cold ice water, pouring straight on Todd's head, completely extinguishing his last hope of shirking responsibility and framing others. His face turned from pale to gray, and then completely bloodless, and his whole body slumped powerlessly on the ground, completely collapsing. Gigi on the side also completely despaired after hearing my words, sitting on the ground crying, no longer arrogant and playful, only endless fear and regret. Chapter 5 Full-Scale Retribution. Career Ruin. Criminal Confirmation. Public Humiliation. The official investigation team of the State Financial Supervision Bureau and the Municipal Engineering Supervision Committee arrived at the bank scene within half an hour. The investigators carried out on-site evidence collection and inquiry work in an orderly manner. I submitted all the recorded videos, audio files, transaction screenshots, reporting records, and responsibility confirmation documents one by one. The evidence chain was complete, clear, and detailed, and every link firmly locked the main responsibility on Todd and Gigi. Faced with the ironclad evidence, all Todd's sophistry and shirking were powerless and ridiculous. The investigation team quickly made a preliminary investigation conclusion. Todd Carter, as the person in charge of the Municipal Livelihood Project, seriously derelict his duty, illegally approved the investment of special emergency livelihood funds in junk stocks, resulting in the full loss of 100 million public funds, which seriously endangered the safety of people's livelihood projects and constituted a major dereliction of duty crime and illegal use of public funds crime. Gigi Bennett, as a bank staff member, illegally operated public fund transactions, violated professional operating norms and financial risk regulations, arbitrarily invested special livelihood funds in delisted stocks, and was the direct operator of the fund loss accident, constituting a major financial illegal act and joint crime of dereliction of duty. The on-site disposal result came out quickly. Todd was immediately dismissed from all positions of the Municipal Engineering Bureau, permanently included in the National Public Servant Credit Blacklist, banned from engaging in all public management and project supervision industries for life, and transferred to the judicial organ for criminal investigation and trial due to suspected major economic crimes. Once convicted, he will face at least more than 10 years of fixed-term imprisonment, and his personal reputation and career will be completely ruined, and he will never have a chance to turn over in his life. Gigi was immediately dismissed by the bank, permanently blacklisted by all domestic financial institutions, banned from engaging in any financial industry-related work for life, and simultaneously held legally responsible for joint compensation and criminal liability. The childish and frivolous little girl who relied on her childhood friendship to act recklessly completely ruined her lifelong career and future with her own hands. The farce that they thought was a casual adventure completely turned into a lifelong, irreversible disaster. Subsequently, the project loss assessment report was officially released. Due to the full loss of special funds, the Canyon Lake Dam Reinforcement Project was completely shut down, the construction was delayed indefinitely, and the hidden dangers of the old dam could not be eliminated. The upcoming summer superflood will indeed impact the dam body, bringing huge hidden dangers to downstream residents. But this time, no one will blame me, no one will wrong me. All public opinions and official conclusions clearly attribute all the disaster consequences to Todd's dereliction of duty and Gigi's illegal operation. I, on the other hand, performed my supervisory duties in place, reported risks in a timely manner, retained complete evidence, and avoided greater dereliction of duty losses for the unit. Instead, I was commended by the municipal government and the Supervision Bureau for my rigorous work and proactive risk prevention. Chapter 6 Absolute Cool Counterattack, Clear Reputation, Career Promotion, Enemies Endless Pain. In the subsequent public opinion fermentation, the whole city knew the absurd and ridiculous accident of the 100 million livelihood fund loss. Everyone was shocked and angry at Todd's blind doting and dereliction of duty, and laughed at Gigi's childish and ignorant horoscope investment. The two people who once had a good reputation in the circle completely became the laughingstock of the whole city, and their relatives and friends all cut off contact with them, fearing that they would be implicated. Todd, who was detained and waiting for trial, finally completely woke up from his arrogance and blindness. He finally understood how stupid and ridiculous his previous behavior was, how ruthless and selfish his framing of me in his previous life was, and how thorough his collapse was in this life. He repeatedly applied for meeting with me in the detention center, wrote countless repentance letters and pleading messages, begging me to forgive him, begging me to help him intercede with the judicial organ, begging me to give him a chance to start over. When I know I was wrong, I was blind and arrogant. I shouldn't have trusted Gigi, shouldn't have derelict my duty, shouldn't have hurt you. Forgive me. We have 3 years of feelings. You helped me once. I will spend my whole life repaying you. But I never replied to any of his messages, never gave him any chance to meet. Feelings? Repayment? When he locked me in the file room and set fire to burn me to ashes in my previous life, he never thought of 3 years of feelings. When he framed me for embezzling public funds and ruined my reputation and life, he never thought of repaying me. All his repentance and pleading are just helpless excuses after falling into the abyss, just begging for survival and forgiveness. But I have long been indifferent to all his endings. Good and evil will be rewarded in the end, and karma circulates inevitably. He ruined my life in my previous life, and he destroyed himself in this life. This is the fairest ending. Gigi also completely collapsed after being blacklisted. She lost all her career opportunities, was spurned by her family and friends, and lived in endless regret and pain every day. She finally understood that childish willfulness and blind luck could never offset the seriousness of rules and responsibilities. Their pain and despair are far less than the fire purgatory I endured in my previous life. This is just the most basic retribution they deserve. On the contrary, I got everything I lost in my previous life in this life. I have a clear reputation, no stains, and my workability is fully recognized by the municipal government and the Supervision Bureau. I was promoted exceptionally to the Chief Financial Supervisor of the Municipal Livelihood Project, in charge of all the city's major project fund supervision work, with a bright future and a smooth career. I used my rebirth opportunity to completely get rid of the wrong people and bad fate, cut off all negative fetters, and walked out of a broad and bright road belonging only to myself. Epilogue. Rebirth for self. All enemies fall. Absolute freedom. The summer flood came as scheduled, and the unreinforced Canyon Lake Dam was impacted by the flood, resulting in partial collapse of the dam body and small-scale flooding of the downstream area. Fortunately, the municipal government issued an emergency evacuation plan in advance, and there were no casualties, but the economic losses were huge, and all the responsibility and loss compensation were borne by Todd and Gigi. Todd was finally sentenced to 12 years in prison for major dereliction of duty and illegal use of public funds, and all his personal property was seized to compensate for project losses and public fund gaps. Gigi also bore joint civil compensation liability, owed huge debts that can never be paid off in her life, and spent her whole life in debt and regret. They spent the rest of their lives in darkness and pain, paying for their momentary recklessness and lifelong arrogance. And I stood on the high-rise office of the Municipal Project Center, looking at the peaceful city below, with a calm heart and no more hatred or anger. My rebirth is not for revenge, but for redemption. I redeemed my stupid and soft-hearted self in my previous life, redeemed my wrong life trapped in feelings and kindness, and redeemed all the pains and regrets I once endured. In my previous life, I was kind and saved others, but was destroyed by others. In this life, I am cold and self-disciplined, only responsible for myself, and let the ungrateful people destroy themselves. The most powerful revenge